is La Traviata. Beautiful and timeless. And on the topic of time, who among us hasn't imagined what life was like in an other place or time than the space and time we were born into? Wouldn't it be interesting to peer back through the veil of time and just take a look at what was going on without, of course, alarming anyone in that era with our presence? Like a space-time tourist, just casually observing and enjoying the scenery of distant places in distant eras. What if you could be there for a frozen moment and be gone so fast that no one could notice you, but for as long as you like in that slice of time? Well, I guess that's what we call photography, and in our present time we have many options for ways to preserve a moment of our reality, but if we're going to do meaningful time tourism in this manner, we'll need some very high quality and well-preserved old photos. Naturally, the longer a photograph kicks around, the worse it gets at conveying its original message due to the ravages of the passage of time itself and natural deterioration. Also, there's the fact that color photography, film, and video hasn't been around all that long. But what if you could significantly improve those images through restoration and by adding color? It would surely bring you closer to the historical content of those pictures if you could see them through a cleaner, clearer, and more colorful lens. So we're going to try to do just that. This experience is intended to allow your modern eyes to see much as folks would have as they saw these scenes unfold at the time they were photographed. This is one way to accomplish what we call time tourism. My name is CalAnne and I'll be your tour guide. We'll be touring through the well-preserved California Gold Rush village of Fiddletown's distant and recent history through photos and a few other means. You may count me as the first of these historic Fiddletown photos brought back to life. I'm the calendar girl from the Chew Kee Museum in Fiddletown, and trust me, I've seen some history. Since Fiddletown is my hometown, it's as good a place as any to start. So, shall we begin? This isn't Fiddletown, this is the city of San Francisco around 100 hours before the Great San Francisco Earthquake of 1906. The original footage shot by the Miles brothers was called A Trip Down Market Street. Here you see the sharp contrast between NASA's amazing renovation of the movie and the original film. Look at all the different modes of transportation that were in use around the turn of the 20th century. There are trams, trolleys, cable cars, automobiles and horse-drawn carriages and utility wagons, omnibuses, and rickshaws. Even some vehicles I can't identify, and hundreds of daring pedestrians bravely traversing the high-speed pandemonium on blast. This is an exquisite example of time tourism. Unfortunately, the Miles brothers never shot a film called A Trip Through Fiddletown, but many photo postcards and privately owned antique photograph collections have made the following images available for our trip through time in Fiddletown's unique space. By the turn of the century, I mean by the year 1900, Fiddletown had sustained several major fires which wiped out most of the wooden structures from the first period of boomtown construction. The Odd Fellows and Masonic temples, along with Fiddletown's Grand U.S. Hotel and many residential buildings, all up in smoke. Not all of these fires were accidental, but thanks to the rammed earth construction of the Chew Kee Store, my home escaped the fires of the last 2 centuries. Jimmy Chow, the last Chinese inhabitant of Fiddletown, can be consulted for more about the herbalist shop in other videos from Persistent Organic Moss. As far as time tourism goes, this is where the styles and modes of antiquity bleed into the more recognizable fixtures of the relatively recent past, where the names sound familiar and the places look more or less the same as they do in the present. This marks a shift in the nature of our reminiscent observation. Let's have a look at the timeline for the last 100 years of Fiddletown's story. This picture postcard is of Dennis Townsend Jr., whose father, Dennis Townsend Sr., was Fiddletown's first postmaster, first schoolteacher, and fully legit patent-holding Renaissance man. Dennis is pictured here rolling a cigarette in front of an old stage stop at one of Fiddletown's saloons.
Thought I would send you my picture. Am getting along, slowly. Your cousin, Dennis Townsend.
You know, I wonder how Dennis Sr. would feel about the misspelled sign above Jr.'s head. This clever poem was printed on the back of the business card belonging to the proprietor of the bar pictured here, which was later named the Fiddler's Inn, and it goes like this. In Amador's fair foothills, where in the days of old, men from every nation came to dig for gold, there is a little hamlet. Fiddletown is the name. Throughout our whole wide nation, men tell about its fame. For where the old-time fiddlers once played their tunes so gay, that master fiddler, Rubinoff, is mayor there today. And when you travel that way, there's something you should know. There's a dandy little inn there where all the tourists go. It's in an old-time building, there's a genial host within. The sign above the doorway says that it's the Fiddler's Inn. Be sure to stop there, partner, take this young cowhand's advice. And you'll be glad I told you, for they sure do treat you nice. Poem written by Vernon P. Graylich. This was written after the election of Mayor Rubinoff, who was highly celebrated, as you can see here, with all the pomp and circumstance befitting local royalty. Fiddletown streets hadn't seen activity like they did on his inaugural event since the gold rush's heyday. They would not see activity like this again until the annual fiddler contests of the 1970s, which had the streets clogged for a mile in each direction and had countless jacketed Hells Angels happily swarming, as many residents of town will attest. For a couple days, their lawns and driveways were repurposed as lounges, tent camps, and open-air restrooms for the multitudes of contest attendees, participants, and vendors. The 1970s, more than, perhaps, any time, ever, saw fiddling aficionados sharing experiences and common ground with highly energetic motorcycle enthusiasts and club members for a balmy September weekend every year of the Ford and Carter administrations, and all right here in our humble little village of Fiddletown. Who knew? Oh, those were wild, wild times. Yes, they really were indeed. Ah, but very entertaining. Well, Fiddletown has had entertainment associated with it one way or another since it was named, with, more or less, an accusation of spending time fiddling, that is to say, goofing off, when there was mining to be done. To commemorate this relaxed nomenclature, Rubinoff, that's Mayor Rubinoff, whose inaugural was attended by close to 2,000 people, played a great whimsical dedication called Fiddlin' the Fiddle. And here it is. Ah, when the virtuoso and his Stradivarius cuts loose. And while we're on the topic of entertainment, our Time Tourism expedition is going to observe a fairly recent annual Fiddler's Jam. As you can see, these recent events are more subdued affairs, but with all of the local wineries doing better than ever, there is still a lively heartbeat in the old so-called ghost town. Apparently not ready to give up the ghost just yet. That brings us up nearly to the present day, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention Fiddletown's other claim to fame, its being on the National Register of Historic Places. I was talking earlier about what great stuff rammed earth was for surviving fire. And it is, but there was a time when my home, the historic Chew Kee Store, was in some serious jeopardy. For that bit of time tourism, we don't have to go very far back, but we won't stay there very long. The year is 1977, and Fiddletown was fighting for its life and mine from assured destruction by the deleterious effects of its being located near to what would have been a massive quarry. The proposal to exploit the limestone deposits was ultimately defeated by persistent and clever efforts from some of the more resourceful residents that navigated the steps to have Fiddletown become a nationally recognized historic place with all the protections one could ever wish for. So my home was saved once again. This time by persistence and resourcefulness, which is also pretty great stuff. Persistent organic moss. Thomas Scofield would like to acknowledge attribution and thank the following: the Amador County Historical Society, John Carrillo, Jack Mitchell and the Ledger-Dispatch News Archives, the Fiddletown Preservation Society, DID Creative Reality Studio, MyHeritage.com, California State Library, MyGoodTrust.com, OpenAI, Mr. Fyung Chow Yu, the management at Universal Space-Time, and of course the powers that be. Oh yes, they be.
2023 Persistent Organic Moss for Ancient California Gold. Powered by unspeakable sources. Unstoppable forces. Thanks for watching.